Good evening, dear students. Welcome to Sankalp Learning Classes. Today we are going to discuss the new chapter from the ecology, that is ecosystem. Already we have finished one chapter from the ecosystem, that is the first chapter, organisms and the population. So ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ecosystem, so this chapter also comes under the ecology. Okay, so ಈ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಅನ್ನ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಐ ಹೋಪ್ ಆಲ್ ಆರ್ ರೆಡಿ ಟು ಲಿಸನ್ ದ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ರೆಡಿ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇನೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಎಸ್, ವಿತೌಟ್ ವೇಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಲೆಟ್ us start this chapter. So the first thing is, what is the meaning of ecosystem, right? So ecosystem idra artha enu? We already learned what is ecology, right? So ecology, and what is the meaning of population, organism, then biome. So these all things we have studied. Then what is the meaning of ecosystem, right? So here ecosystem, which refers to the total number of organisms which are present in a particular area and their interaction with the living organisms, and their interaction with the abiotic factors also. So which the particular environment which containing the both biotic and abiotic factor, which is known as the ecosystem, right? So which is the functional unit of nature where living organisms, so how we can define ecosystem, which is the functional unit of the nature where living organisms interact themselves. So as I said, there is an interaction between the living organisms then themselves, also surrounding environment, means with the abiotic factor. So that is called as the ecology. Okay, so here, what is ecosystem? Types of the ecosystem we can see here. So there are mainly three types of the ecosystem we can see in our environment. The first type of the ecosystem, that is terrestrial ecosystem, and second type aquatic ecosystem, and the third type man-made ecosystem. So terrestrial ecosystem, which involves the land like forest, grassland, desert, that is the terrestrial ecosystem. So this is called as the desert ecosystem, rainforest ecosystem. So these all are the terrestrial type. Aquatic means, so water bodies, right? Like pond, the ecosystem, the organisms present in that environment like pond, lake, wetland, river, and the estuary. So these all are the example for the aquatic ecosystem. Then man-made means that is the artificial. For example, crop fields, you can see the crop fields, so or garden. Okay, for example, garden, that is man-made. Okay, that is called as man-made ecosystem. And this aquarium is the man-made ecosystem. So we can divide the ecosystem into three types. Okay, terrestrial, aquatic, and man-made. Then ecosystem structure and function. So what is the structure and function of the ecosystem here? So entire biosphere is regarded as the global ecosystem. So if you consider the entire earth, so we can call it as the global ecosystem, right? So here, in a ecosystem, biotic and abiotic components interact and function as a unit. So in a particular ecosystem, for example, in a grassland or in a pond ecosystem, so there is an interaction between biotic and abiotic. For example, these biotic organisms like fishes, zooplanktons, so they take the abiotic contents like sunlight and oxygen. So they interact with the abiotic factors also that function as a unit. So vertical distribution of different species occupying the different level is called as the stratification. So what is stratification here? For example, in a forest, trees occupy top strata, means top layer, shrubs the second layer, and the herbs and grasses that the bottom layer. So ground layer, so that is some grasses, herbs and grasses, shrubs, so that is at the second layer, and some small plants, that is at the middle layer. Then the top layer, that is occupied by the tall plants, right? So this distribution, that is called as the stratification. In a forest, trees occupy top strata, uh, shrubs the second, and herbs and grasses the bottom layer. So this distribution, the vertical distribution, so that is called as the stratification. Okay, so the correct answer, so the correct definition of this, so you should know stratification. Okay. So if you consider a pond ecosystem, okay, so just consider pond ecosystem. So in pond ecosystem, you can find mainly water and living organisms present in water, like small fishes you can observe, and small algae also you can observe, and zooplankton, that are small organisms also you can observe. So, a pond is a shallow, simple, self sustainable water body that exhibits the basic component of the ecosystem. So, abiotic components. So, what are the abiotic components we can observe here? Water and the some soil deposit we can observe at the bottom of this. So, that is called as the abiotic component, that is water and the soil deposit. Then climatic condition, like solar input, so that is also a biotic condition. Then temperature, day length, so these all are the climatic conditions of that ecosystem. Then autotrophic components, and what are the autotrophic component present in this pond ecosystem? Phytoplankton. So phyto means plant, plankton means some small organisms. Okay, so phytoplanktons, they are autotrophs, means they absorb the solar light, and they produce their own food. And marginal plants, small plants also you can observe. And consumers, you can observe the consumers. So these small plants, they are consumed by the zooplankton. Okay, and free swimming and bottom dwelling forms. And decomposers also you can find in the pond ecosystem, like fungi, bacteria, and the flagellates. So this is a pond is example for the an ecosystem, a perfect basic, which contain the basic things in this ecosystem. So pond ecosystem that contains the abiotic and climatic condition also. Then autotrophic components, then consumers and decomposers. So all the components you can see in this basic type of the pond ecosystem. Okay. So, pond performs all the functions of an ecosystem. So, if you take the pond ecosystem as an example, you can see all different types of the functions in that ecosystem. Okay. So, the first type is autotrophs convert the inorganic substances into organic material using solar radiant energy. So, here autotrophs means phytoplanktons, right? Phytoplanktons, they absorb the solar radiation, then they convert the inorganic substances into organic material using the solar energy. Then heterotrophs consume the autotrophs. So these phytoplanktons, they are consumed by the heterotrophs, right? And decomposition and mineralization of the dead matter to release them back for reuse of by the autotrophs. So when these the decomposition takes place, so by the bacteria and the fungi, the mineralization means the release of the nutrients from the dead and decaying material, so that also takes place. And so you can see the mm, mineral nutrient recycling in this ecosystem. Okay, so if you see the ecosystem, so mainly four basic components you can observe. Okay, so already you have seen the pond ecosystem, right? So we have seen the pond ecosystem. So in pond ecosystem, abiotic components and climatic condition, autotrophic components, consumers, decomposers, and so these all things we have observed in the pond ecosystem. So if you see the any ecosystem, desert ecosystem or grassland ecosystem, so if you see any ecosystem, mainly you can observe the four basic components. Okay, the first one is the productivity, second one decomposition, and the third one energy flow, then fourth one nutrient cycling. Okay, so these four steps you can observe in all the way, all the ecosystem. So let us study this in detail. Okay, in detail ಆಗಿ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗೋಣ ಇದನ್ನ. What is productivity, right? What is the definition of the productivity? Solar energy is the basic requirement for an ecosystem to function and sustain. Yes, without solar energy, no ecosystem will be survived. Okay. So amount of biomass, that is the organic matter produced per unit area over a time or a time period by plants during the photosynthesis is called primary production. So here what is primary production? By using the sunlight, so the amount of biomass, so that is the organic matter produced per unit area over a time period, so during the photosynthesis, that is called as the primary production. Okay, what is primary production? So definition you should know. It is expressed in weight, that is gram square, or energy, that is kilocalorie per meter. Then the rate of biomass production is called as productivity. Then how do you define the productivity? The rate of biomass production is called as the productivity. It is expressed. So how it is expressed? Kilocalorie per meter square, right? So like that it is expressed. It is divided into gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. So the total productivity, if you consider a productivity, it is divided into two types, that is gross primary productivity and net primary productivity, GPP and the NPP. So these two types we can observe. Then what is gross primary productivity and net primary productivity, right? So gross primary productivity, it is the rate of production of organic matter during the photosynthesis. So how much organic matter is produced by using the solar light in the process of photosynthesis? A considerable amount of GPP is used by plants for respiration. So GPP here, gross primary productivity, right? Productivity means the total amount of biomass produced during the photosynthesis. So small amount of this biomass that is used by the plants, so that is called as the by the respiration, so that is called as gross primary productivity. Okay, so gross primary productivity by R. Okay, here What is net primary productivity? It is the available biomass for the consumption to the heterotrophs. You know that? So these heterotrophs, they consume the plant, sorry, heterotrophs means these herbivores, carnivores, they consume the predator, right? So here, so the amount of biomass that is available for the herbivore or decomposers, that is called as the net primary productivity. So how we can get the net primary productivity? So net primary productivity is equal to gross primary productivity minus R. R means the amount, the considerable amount that is used for the, that is used by the plants for respiration. Okay, so how do you get the net primary productivity? By removing the, by substituting the R from the gross primary productivity, that is the net primary productivity. Okay, so I hope you got these two types of the productivity: gross primary productivity and the net primary productivity. Then what is secondary productivity? It is the rate of formation of new organic matter by consumers. So just imagine, so grass that uses the sunlight and produces the um, products, so that is called as gross primary productivity. So some amount is used by the plants for respiration, that is called as R. So you will get the net primary productivity. Okay, so NPP you will get. But the grass or the NPP that is available for the herbivores in the next. Okay, and the herbivore that is consumed by the carnivore. So here the of amount of biomass that is available for the organic matter that is available for the carnivore, that is called as the secondary productivity. Okay, so secondary productivity means what? So if it is a herbivore, so the amount of organic matter available for the carnivore, that is called as the secondary productivity. The plant species inhibiting, so primary productivity varies in different ecosystem because it depends on the plant species inhabiting an area, environmental factors, availability of nutrients, photosynthetic capacity of the plants. Okay, next one. Annual net primary productivity of whole biosphere is 170 billion tons. That is the dry weights. So of this, despite occupying 70% of the surface, the productivity of the ocean is 55 billion tons. So compared to the terrestrial area, so it is 55 billion tons. Okay. Then the second thing what we observed in the ecosystem, that is the decomposition. You know that, so if some organism that is dead, so that is in the environment means, so after some time the body that will get decomposed and mixed with the soil. So we can't see the dead organism in that area. So what is the reason behind this? Why, what is the importance of decomposition and how it takes place? So it is the breakdown of the complex organic matter by decomposers into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water and nutrients. So it is the complex organic matter present in the dead organisms that decomposes into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water and the nutrients. Okay, then it is largely an oxygen requiring process, this decomposition. So decomposition of any organism's body or any fecal matter, so that requires the oxygen. Raw material for decomposition is called as the detritus. So raw material, so these all are the raw material, so that is that undergo the decomposition, that is called as the detritus. Okay, so for example for the detritus: dead plant remains, leaves, bark, flowers, and dead remains of the animals, fecal matter. So these all are called as the detritus, which undergo the decomposition. Animal body or fecal matter, flowers, bark, leaves, so these all things which undergo the decomposition. Then, so this decomposition takes place in five steps: fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification, and mineralization. Very important. So these steps, so in MCQs and in 2 mark questions, so it will be asked steps of decomposition. So here you can see the dead organism's body, right? So see, after some times it decomposed and mixed with the soil, right? So see the difference between the first and the last picture. And here also you can see the leaves, right? So what happens in the decomposition? There are different steps in the decomposition, that is fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification, and the mineralization. What is fragmentation then? So the first step in the decomposition, that is the fragmentation means breakdown madodu alva. So breakdown of detritus into smaller particles by detrivores, for example earthworm. So you can see the detritus, for example fecal matter or dead organisms body or um, some flowers bark, so that will be break down by the detrivores means which break down the detritus, that is called as detrivores. For example earthworm, they break down into smaller particles. Okay, like this they form the smaller particles, that is called as the detrivores. So that process is called as the fragmentation. So that is the formation of the smaller fragments of the smaller particles of the detritus by detrivore. So this earthworm, that is commonly called as the detrivore. Okay, please remember this word. Then second step is the leaching. What is this leaching? So you can see water soluble inorganic nutrients go down into soil horizon and participate as unavailable salts. So some inorganic nutrients are present in their body. So just they will move, go down to the earth. So you can see the nutrients, they go down to the earth and as precipitate as unavailable salts. Okay, that is not available. Then the next process, that is the catabolism. So what is catabolism? Catabolism means you know that is breakdown. Okay, if any complex material is there, so that we have to break down. So the same meaning also here we can explain: degradation of the detritus into simple inorganic substances by bacterial and the fungal enzymes. So some bacterial and the fungal enzymes, they break down the detritus into simple inorganic substances. Some inorganic substances are formed by this process. Okay, so this fragmentation, leaching, and catabolism, that occur simultaneously. Then what is humification? Accumulation of the humus. So this is called as the humus, that is the dark color amorphous substance. So this is called as the humus. Okay, so in soil, humus is resistant to microbial action and so decomposes very slowly. Being colloidal in nature, it serves as a reservoir of nutrients. It is very rich in nutrient and humus is resistance to the microbial action. Okay, so that we can see in the process of the humification. So accumulation of the humus. So that is the fourth step in the decomposition. Then the last step, that is the mineralization. It is the release of inorganic nutrients due to the degradation of humus by some microbes. So the nutrients, so that is released by degradation of the humus. Humus is the, that is the amorphous dark color substance which where the microbial activity is less, but the release of the nutrients takes place so by the degradation of humus by some microbes, that is the mineralization. So this is how the decomposers that mix the some detritus into the soil, so how they add the nutrients to the soil, so the ಹೇಗೆ nutrients ಅನ್ನ soil ಗೆ add ಮಾಡತ್ತೆ, so by this process, so that is called as the decomposition process. Here you can see the diagrammatic representation of decomposition cycle in a terrestrial ecosystem. So what is the diagrammatic representation? Here you can see how the decomposition takes place in the environment. So tree grows in the soil. So this tree that is growing in the that grown in that soil, and the green leaf falls on the ground. So you know that some leaves they fall on the ground. Then some are eaten by insects and other animals. Nutrients and energy enter into the food web. So some are eaten by the insects and other organisms, and some nutrients leach into soil by chemical action. So here this is the fragmentation process. Earthworm that break down the leaves into smaller fragments, that is called as the fragmentation. Then leaching some nutrients, some available simple nutrients that leach into the soil by chemical action. Okay, then so here you can observe leaves the partially consumed by leaves partially consumed by decomposers such as fungi and bacteria, they begin to lose and form the become litter. Okay, so that also you can observe. Further decomposition by earthworms, bacteria and soil mites and the fungi, so that is in the organic rich soil, so that the nutrients that mix with the soil and the trees which use the nutrients present in the soil. So this is how the decomposition that increase the soil nutrient quality. Then what are the factors that influence the decomposition? What are the factors that effects on the decomposition? The first one is decomposition is slow in decreases rich in lignin and chitin. So if the lignin and chitin materials are there, then the decomposition is slow, so it requires more time to break down. Okay, it is quicker if the detritus is rich in nitrogen and water soluble substances like sugars. So if nitrogen is rich, then the decomposition is very easy. And climatic factors like temperature and soil, warm and moist environment favor the decomposition. So the faster reproduction decomposition takes place when the warm and moist environmental condition is there. So it is low temperature and anaerobiosis, so inhibit the decomposition of resulting in the buildup of organic material. So this is how the factors which affect the decomposition. Then the third step in the ecosystem, the third important thing in the ecosystem, that is the energy flow. So you know that sun is the main source of energy in all ecosystem. If you consider pond, grassland or forest, so any ecosystem, sun is the main source of energy. So of the incident solar radiation, less than 50% photosynthetically active radiation. So all the sunlights which is received, so that is not photosynthetically active radiation. Less than 50% that act as the photosynthetically active radiation. Then plants and photosynthetic chemosynthetic bacteria so fix solar radiant energy to make the food. You know that autotrophs, so you know about the photosynthesis. Some bacteria, that is chemosynthetic and autotrophic bacteria and plants, they use the solar radiation, so which is available less than 50%, so photosynthetically active radiation, so that they make the food. And plants capture 2 to 10% of the photosynthetically active radiation. Okay, solar energy that is captured by the plants only how much, 2 to 10%, and they convert it into the food. Okay, they make their food. Then so the ecosystem obeys second law of thermodynamics, that is they need constant supply of energy to synthesize the molecules. It helps in the counteract entropy. Okay, so they need continuous supply of the energy. So only 2 to 10% of the solar radiation that is used by the producers. So they are organisms that synthesize the food. So the plants are called as producers, they synthesize the food. In a terrestrial ecosystem, major producers are herbivores and woody plants. So sorry, herbaceous and the woody plants. So some herbaceous plants, herbaceous means the stem that is very delicate and easily flexible plants, so that is called as herbaceous plants and woody plants. Primary producers in aquatic ecosystem are phytoplankton. So phytoplankton means that is the small uh, photosynthetic organisms, so algae and the higher plants. The energy trapped by the producer is passed on to the consumer or the organisms dies. So the producers, they absorb the photosynthetically active radiation and they produce the food, and the energy trapped, the solar energy trapped by the producers, so that is move in the, that is passed to the consumer, the energy that is passed to the consumer. Okay, so that is called as the energy flow. Then consumers, heterotrophs. So heterotrophs means they are not able to produce their foods, right? So grass, plants, and all the photosynthetically photosynthesis performing organisms, they are called as producers. So consumers, so they are the heterotrophs. Here grass is the producer, so with the help of sunlight which produces the food, and this grass that is eaten by the grasshopper, the energy is transferred. So the energy received by the sun, that is transferred to the grasshopper, okay, in the form of food. Here the grasshopper, that is called as the primary consumer, and the frog which eats the grasshopper, that is called as the secondary consumer, and the tertiary consumer, that is snake and the eagle, then the fungi. So like this, the consumers, so we can call primary producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, like this. Okay, so here primary consumers are herbivores. So this grasshopper, for example, if you write rabbit here also, rabbit, so this is the primary consumer. So these primary consumers are herbivores. Secondary and tertiary consumers, they are carnivores, means they eat only meat and meat products, so they are called as carnivores. So the flow of energy takes place, energy flow takes place in this food chain. So the chain of feeding relationship between different organisms is called as the food chain. So there are two types of the food chain. The first one is the grazing food chain and the second type is the detritus food chain. So what is this grazing food chain and the detritus food chain? So grazing food chain, here primary consumer feeds on the living plants. See here, caterpillar, here this is the primary consumer that feeds on the living plant. Okay, so that is called as the grazing food chain. For example, grass, grasshopper and frog. So this is the grazing food chain. And caterpillar, that is eaten by the thrush. Okay, so that is the bird. What is detritus food chain? So what is the difference between the grazing food chain and the detritus food chain? So here primary consumer feeds on the dead organic material, that is the detritus. So it is called as the detritus food chain. So here the leaves, dead leaves, that is eaten by wood louse. So here by this worm, so this worm, so that eats the dead leaves, means the primary food, the primary consumer that depends on the dead organism, that is called as the detritus food chain. So here for both you can see the example. So here detritus is made up of decomposers, that is the saprophytes such as fungi and bacteria. They secrete digestive enzymes that break down the detritus into simple organic materials which is absorbed by them. So thus they get energy and nutrients. Okay, so they get the energy and nutrients by this process. So in an ecosystem, GFC is the major conduit of energy flow. What is GFC? Grazing food chain. Okay, so grazing food chain means the living organism. So the primary consumer that depend on the living organism, that is called as the grazing food chain. So in a terrestrial ecosystem, a much amount of energy flows through the DFC, that is the detritus food chain, than the GFC. DFC may be connected with GFC at some level. So here you can see the detritus food chain and the grazing food chain. So they are connected. So animals like cockroach, crows and humans are omnivores. Such interconnection of food chains is called as the food web. So here both the food chains also you can observe, and the interconnection between the food chains. So here ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಕನೆಕ್ಷನ್ ನೋಡಬಹುದು ಅಲ್ವಾ ಫುಡ್ ಚೈನ್ ಮಧ್ಯೆ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ corn, so grasshopper, so that is eaten by the frog, then eagle. Okay, so this is one food chain, but this food chain is interconnected with some other animals. So this grasshopper, that is also eaten by the rat also, frog also, and this frog is eaten by some other organism also, like python, and rat is also eaten by the python, so or snake. So here interconnection between the two food chains, two or more food chains, you can see, that is called as the food web. Then, so how the energy flow takes place actually, you know that producer that absorb the radiation from the sun and which produces the food, then it is passed to the primary consumer, then secondary consumer and the tertiary consumer, like this. So the specific place of organisms in the food chain is called as the trophic level. So here grass, cow, wolf, lion, right? So you can see the food, specific food chain here. So here cow in the second place, right? And wolf that is in the third place, and lion that is in the fourth place. So this specific place, that is called as the trophic level. Okay, so here primary producer, that is always in the first trophic level, and the primary consumer, cow, herbivores, they are always in the secondary second trophic level, then third, and the next one is the fourth trophic level. So these are called as the trophic levels, the different levels in the food chain, that is called as the trophic level. So you can see the flow of energy, so in this manner, from producer to the uh, primary consumer, then secondary consumer, and the tertiary consumer. So like this you can see the flow of energy in the food chain. Then, so there is a some law, so only 10% of the energy that is transferred to the next level, so the remaining one, so that is lost in the form of heat. Okay, so see here, only 2 to 10% of the solar radiation that is absorbed by the plant. Okay, just imagine plant produced 1000 calories of kilocalories of food. Okay, then only 10% is transferred to the next level. 10% of this 1000, that is only 100 kilocalories transferred to the next level. Then 10% of this, okay, so that is transferred to the next level, so the remaining that is lost in the form of heat. So the first trophic level producers, second trophic level primary consumers, they are called as herbivores, third trophic level carnivores, and this is the fourth trophic level, and you can see the loss of energy in the form of heat. The amount of energy decreased at the successive trophic levels. When an organism dies, it becomes dead biomass, that is called as the detritus. It is the energy source for decomposers. So when the animals or the organisms die, so the this is called as the dead biomass, and the organisms at each trophic level depend on those at which the lower trophic level at the for the energy. So all the organisms, they depend on the organisms in the lower trophic level for their energy. Okay, the amount of living material in a trophic level at a given time is called as the standing crop. So how much biomass is present, that is called as the standing crop. It is measured as biomass, that is the mass of living organisms, or number in unit area, that is called as the standing crop. Then biomass of species is measured in terms of fresh or dry weight. The dry weight is more accurate because it is exact mass of the body which remains constant. So we can the biomass that can be measured by dry weight and the wet weight. So but wet is the correct form. The number of trophic levels in the grazing food chain is restricted as it follows the 10% law. So as I explained, so the 10% rule, so only 10% of the energy is transferred to the next level. So the remaining that is lost in the form of heat. So that is called as the 10% rule. Then ecological pyramids. So you know about the pyramids, right? So then what is this ecological pyramids? Ecological pyramids means the representation of the food chain in the form of pyramid. So that is called as the ecological pyramid. Okay. The base of the pyramid that represents the producers. So here the base, the producers will be there, then in the next level primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, like this. So you should draw the pyramid. So here in your NCRT you are studying about the three types of the pyramid: pyramid of number, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of energy. So three types of the pyramids you are studying. So let us start with the first one, pyramid of number. Okay, the first pyramid, that is the pyramid of number. So example, grassland ecosystem. Okay. So grass, just write the write the this food chain. Grass that is eaten by the primary consumer, that may be rat, that may be deer or like that, any herbivore. Then secondary consumer, so which depends on the primary consumer like lion, tiger, like that. Then in the tertiary consumer. Okay, so these all are the different top trophic levels in the food chain. So this is the pyramid of number. Okay, so what is the number of grass? So just imagine 5 lakh 84,000. Okay, 58 lakh 42,000 something, right? So like this, the number is more. The primary producers are more. But see the primary consumers, they are not same as primary producer, just less. 7 lakh 8,000, right? 7 lakh 8,000 organisms are the primary consumers. Then see the secondary consumers, that is 3 lakh 54,000, that are the secondary consumers. Then only 3 are the tertiary consumers. So you can see the producers are more and the number is decreasing. So when the trophic level increases, right? So you can draw the pyramid like this: base, that is larger one, then the primary consumer, that is lesser than the primary producer, then secondary consumer, then the very less tertiary consumer. So this is called as the pyramid of number. Okay, three types of the pyramids we are studying. The first one is the pyramid of number. Then second type is the pyramid of biomass. So you know that the biomass that is measured in the form of, mainly the correct form is dry weight of that um, organisms present in that trophic level. Okay, so primary producers, so you can see the 809 dry weight, that is kg. And primary consumer, that is having less than the producer. Then secondary consumer, that is having the less than the tertiary consumer, that is having the very less compared to the primary producer. So you will get the triangle shaped, that is what you call upright pyramids, you can see here. Then inverted pyramid of biomass. So here see the some small standing crop of phytoplankton supports the large standing crop of the zooplankton. Okay, here primary producers, for example small um, photosynthetic organisms are, they are very less, but the primary consumers, their biomass is more. Okay, compared to this, if you consider a aquatic ecosystem, the primary producers that having the less biomass compared to the primary consumer, so that is called as the inverted pyramid of biomass. So in biomass we can see two types of the pyramids. So pyramids of upright pyramid and the inverted pyramid also we can see here. Then pyramid of energy. So how the energy, what is the amount of energy in the different trophic levels? So here primary producers, they receives the energy from this sunlight and they produces more, right? So they always have the more energy compared to the, they always produce the more energy compared to the primary producer. So here you can see 10,000 joules, then 1,110 in the different trophic levels. So here primary producers convert only 1% of the energy in sunlight available to them into net productivity. Okay, NPP. So this is the pyramid of energy. So three types of pyramids we have seen. That is the pyramid of number, by taking the grassland ecosystem as an example. Then pyramid of biomass, we can see the inverted pyramid also, but examples you should remember, that is in the pond ecosystem. Then pyramid of energy. So this is the third type of the pyramid that we can see here. So any calculations of energy content, biomass or number has include all the organisms at that trophic level. So during the formation of the trophic level, so that should include these all things. A trophic level represents functional level, not a species as such. Okay, a given species may occupy more than one trophic level in the same ecosystem at the same time. So you know that a food web. So if the a grasshopper that may come in the herbivore, and which is occupying the second position, and frog that is at the third position, right? So this frog that may come in the second trophic level in the another food chain also. Okay, so that depends. So a sparrow is a primary consumer when it eats the seeds, fruits and peas, and secondary consumer when it eats the insect and the worms. So like this, the it will be not same, the trophic level, the for the particular organism, so that will be not same. Okay, in most ecosystems all the pyramids are upright. So you have seen almost all the pyramids are upright. That is, producers are more in number, and which produces the more biomass, and biomass then the herbivores, and the herbivores are more in number. So and biomass then the carnivores, like this. So almost all the pyramids, they are um, almost upright pyramids, you can see. Also energy at a lower trophic level is always more than at a higher level. So energy is also more in the trophic level, basic trophic level, producer level. Then biomass is also more compared to the herbivore and other. And the number is also more, the producers have the more number compared to the other. So you can see three different types of the pyramid and also inverted pyramids. Then what are the limitations of this ecological pyramid? It does not take an account the same species belonging to the two or more trophic level. So that is one limitation. It assumes a simple food chain that almost never exists in nature. It does not accommodate a food web. So here we can represent the we cannot represent the food web. We can only represent the food chain. So single food chain is not exist. Very simple food chain is not exist. So food web is there in our nature. Okay. So saprophytes are not included in the ecological pyramid, even though they play vital role in the ecosystem. So these are the limitation of the some ecological pyramid, where some points which do not consider while forming the uh, ecological pyramid. Okay, so this is about the ecological pyramid. This is the last topic in this chapter. Okay, so dear students, so mainly in this chapter what we have studied, so first we studied about the pond ecosystem and the type of ecosystem, right? Different type of the ecosystem we have studied. Then what are the components of the ecosystem? Mainly, what are the components of the ecosystem? We can see the uh, productivity. So in productivity we studied in detail. Then decomposition. So this is also a main component of ecosystem. Decomposition also we have seen. Then energy flow, then nutrient cycling. So these are the main components of the ecosystem. Then we studied about the ecological pyramids, right? So different types of the pyramids that we have studied in this chapter. So only this much topics are there in this chapter. So I hope you understand this all topic, because very easy, because all the wordings and the concepts that already we studied in the different classes. So I hope you understood this concept. Thank you, dear students. We'll meet in the next class.